Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Unfound Now, the monthly series where I cover a recent disappearance. And for this episode, I'll be talking about Maya Blanton, who went missing from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, on February 25th, 2023. She was 26 years old. I'm recording this on March 27th, 2023, so a little over a month since she went missing. Before I get started, I'd like to remind all of you to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and also consider hitting the button down there below. And if you really want to help Unfound out, maybe become a Patreon subscriber supporter, or of course you can be a member here as well. I've started a new series just this month for supporters here on YouTube and on Patreon. It's called Found, in which I will be talking about disappearances that were unsolved for quite a long time, and then they got resolved one way or another. The first episode is already out, where I talk about the disappearance of Brandon Lawson, about him, about the circumstances of his disappearance, all the media done over the years, the theories, and then I eventually get to how his remains were found and probably what happened to him in Texas back in 2013. So once again, for this episode, though, of Unfound Now, I'll be talking about Maya Blanton. The circumstances, just very in general, and I get into this in the map section of this episode. She was last seen in 1000 block of Woodvine Drive in Baton Rouge. Blanton was heading to the downtown area of Baton Rouge for a festival, driving a silver 2008 Honda Accord with a Louisiana license plate 421EYG. And you should know, not only is Maya missing, but her car is missing as well. The 3 points that I will be discussing after the map section, where we take a look where she was and where she was going. The 3 points I'll discuss after looking at the map will be, number 1, on the surface. Number 2, disappearances are about people. And number 3, then what are we supposed to think? All right, let's go take a look at the map, and then I will return to get more in depth on those 3 points. Okay, let's look at this map to see what we can learn from the circumstances of the disappearance of Maya Blanton. What you will see here, and I will zoom this in, is that she was allegedly, and I'll get into some of the facts here in a moment, she was allegedly seen over here on the 1000 block of Woodvine Avenue. You should know that I did verify that is where she was living at the time. That is not an address on that street of a friend or of a business or anything else. That is where she was living at the time. I verified that. And then also in the news, it said that she was going to a festival that was going to be held in downtown Baton Rouge. And that is over here on the left side of the screen. And I am not trying to drive all of you who may have OCD nuts. It is true that street there is not exactly east and west. It does kind of go down when you're going from east to west. That is not the camera being crooked or anything. Anyway, and really that is all we have regarding this disappearance as far as any news that is out there for that day. I've not been able to find any interviews with any of her family, anybody who knew her, any friends, anything like that. We don't know if she was planning to meet friends down at this festival. Being that she's the only one who is missing, I guess she was driving by herself, but there are so few facts out there that it's just kind of hard to say. Of course, from our experience of Unfound, and even outside of Unfound, we know that when people go missing with cars, that usually they're found with those cars. Of course, Eric Franks would be a notable exception. But Ventures with Purpose, Chaos Divers, other groups who have been going out there finding vehicles with people in them. We know how often when people with their vehicles go missing, together and they stay missing for a long time, they're often found together. So that does bring in the idea, could she have gone into that is the Mississippi River there? I guess it's possible. I don't know how probable it is. I don't know how she would get down there. Was she suicidal or something? I don't know. Of course, after this map analysis, we're going to get into a little bit more about Maya that may point us in some directions. But zooming way in, there aren't any retention ponds or lakes along this route, unlike with Esther Westenbarger, for example. There is this area over here, but then we have to start visualizing, well, then what exactly happened here? It's just very hard to say. So the map really does not tell us much. We know where she was. We seemingly know where she was going. Maybe she lied to everybody. I suppose that's possible. But she and her car are missing, and this is over a month later. I'm doing this on March 27th of 2023. So now let's get into those points that I brought up at the beginning of this video, and maybe this will shine a little more light onto some different theories that we might want to consider. Before I get into these 3 points that I listed earlier in this video, I want to once again remind you, patreon.com/Unfound podcast. I have a new series there called Found. And please consider giving this video a thumbs up, subscribing to this channel, share it, like it, do whatever you have to do with friends and family. And also consider hitting the join button below. I would appreciate that. So the first point is on the surface. And what I mean by that is when we first hear about a disappearance, we start to get an idea about what could have happened. At least on the surface, this is what it could be. And what are some of the choices for when a woman goes missing with her car? As I already talked about in the map section, we think about water. Of course, we would think about that with men, too, who go missing with their cars. But as I showed, yes, the Mississippi River there is very close, but it's kind of hard maybe to put that all together of how she would have ended up there. We also might think, being that she was a young woman, carjacked, car stolen, and this is very common. You can see all sorts of videos right here on YouTube, mainly from surveillance video of people, mostly women, unfortunately, getting carjacked. It's happening, and dare I say it, unfortunately, as I'm recording this video on March 27th, 2023, I'm sure there's a carjacking happening right at this moment somewhere in the United States. It's very sad. What might get in the way of that, though, is maybe looking at the car itself. Of course, somebody wanted to make Maya the target, then, of course, the car doesn't matter. On the other hand, sometimes carjackers do care about the cars. Maybe they want to steal that car to sell it, part it out. Would a Honda Accord be high on that list? I know Honda Accords are known as being theft targets, but one that would be 15 years old, maybe. But I would think maybe a Corvette, a BMW, something like that would make a more likely choice for somebody who's looking to steal a car, even if the owner is right there. The other thing I would say about considering some sort of carjacking is that despite having covered over 280 disappearances in the last 6.5 years, I'm not sure any of them were carjackings. Certainly we've had disappearances where people go missing with their cars, certainly, and some of those have been solved, at least partially. But I don't know if any of them were out-and-out carjackings where a person was getting into his or her car, somebody comes along, takes the person and the car, and they both go, the vehicle and the person go missing. Don't know if there's anything necessarily like that. So that's also something we have to consider in a situation like this. Of course, we also have to be open to the idea, being that Maya is a woman, was there a man in her life that wanted to make her disappear, attacked her, and thought it best that if he was going to do that, to make the car disappear as well. Also have to be open to that. Of course, the most well-known disappearance that was resolved in Unfound's history was Esther Westenbarger, who went missing with her car, and she ended up in a retention pond not far from her home. Unfortunately, it does not look like this could be the situation with Maya and her car, having looked at the map. But we don't have a lot. As I stated, we don't have any comments from friends and family. We don't have any additional information. I went to Web Sleuths, for example, to see if there was any more insight there. Anybody who knew Maya writing anything there? Nothing. And we're over a month into this disappearance. So we don't have a lot to go on. But on the surface, these are the theories that we should consider. Now, moving on, number 2, it's probably was the most common statement I made about Unfound in 2022, and it may be the most common statement for 2023 as well, and that is disappearances are about people. We just talked about the circumstances. She was going from point A to point B in her car, and she did not reach point B for some reason. Well, disappearances are about people, and so I'm going to read this. We're not here to blame the victim, but we have to consider the person, and this is something that I found while looking up Maya Blanton. And maybe this is something another theory we might have to consider when thinking about her disappearance. An employee of the Sonic on Government Street in Baton Rouge was arrested after she allegedly fired a gun in the air during a fight with a fellow employee. According to the Baton Rouge Police Department, the incident happened at roughly 10 a.m. at the location on Government Street that is near Jefferson Highway. A caller reported gunshots in the area. Police arrested Maya Blanton, 20, so this happened 6 years ago, and charged her with aggravated assault with a firearm, illegal use of a weapon, second-degree battery, and terrorizing. Blanton and the victim got into a physical altercation inside the store, and Blanton bit the victim in the eyebrow, breaking the skin and caused extreme physical pain, states the probable cause report. After the physical altercation, Blanton went outside and obtained a firearm. Blanton waved the gun in the air in front of several co-workers and the victim. Blanton's mugshot shows signs she possibly suffered injuries as well, though the report does not include any information regarding her injuries. Additionally, the report does not include any information as to what prompted the physical altercation. Witnesses say police or Blanton then got into a vehicle, and as the car was leaving, she leaned out the window and fired one gunshot in the air. Officials say no injuries were reported. Blanton was booked into the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison. It's not stated in this article how she was caught. Did she turn herself in? We don't know any. Did they have to go on the hunt for her? Did it take a couple months? I don't know anything about any of that. But 6 years ago, she got into this situation, and it certainly sounds serious to me. Now, maybe it ended up being self-defense. But when you're in a car driving away and just firing a gun out of a car, I think that ceases to be self-defense. I don't know if she spent any time in prison. I could not find anything about any of that, but this does add a complex element to this disappearance. Was this just a one-off for Maya? Was she just having a bad day or something? Or was this common for her to get into problems like this? Like I said, there's just this one article. Maybe that's the only time this ever happened. But it does say something that she obviously at least had one friend who had no problem picking her up and driving her away from the scene while she's firing a gun in the air. So we have to think about this. To me, this sounds like Maya might have a temper, maybe unpredictable behavior. I mean, really, very well could have been self-defense. And in addition, probably the biggest point, as I've already stated, she didn't stick around at the scene when this happened. My opinion on this as a gun owner, as a person who goes to the gun range once a month And I think I am a good gun owner. And I know I respect my guns. They are not toys. They are tools. But as a gun owner, people who shoot guns wildly into the air probably are more likely to disappear due to foul play than the rest of us. In addition, people who do that probably have friends who also do that, who might also have problems with the law. This is something that we just have to consider. And this is no different than we've covered when we've covered disappearances on Unfound, when we find out that a missing person had a drug problem or some sort of other felony charges like Maya might have gotten. Those things always have to be considered. Always. When we look at a disappearance, because that is telling us about the person, and who the person was or is tells us more about how they could disappear more than the circumstances. I want you all to remember that. So moving on, so to point number 3, then what are we supposed to think? We have this young woman, 26 years old, as far as we can tell, by herself. She was going to be going to this festival downtown, seemingly never made it there. And not only is she missing, but her car is missing. But then we find out that she has this incident from some years ago, although we're not sure if she paid any price for that. Maybe it was self-defense. Maybe they let her off with a fine or something, being that seemingly nobody got really badly injured, nobody got killed. Maybe. But we have to put that all together in trying to figure out, then what are we supposed to think? Well, we have to consider the idea that maybe she wasn't going to that festival. Maybe that's what she told people, but maybe she was going somewhere else. Of course, the complex part is she and the car are missing. And this is news of her disappearance got out a while ago. A month ago, it seemed like the news got out right after she went missing. Somebody called it in. I don't know who did that. But this is a city. How long could a Honda Accord sit somewhere and not be noticed? Especially when there's an all-points bulletin looking for this young woman. It seems unlikely that the car, if it was in a parking garage or along a street or in the parking lot of a Walmart or something, that it would go unnoticed for that long, even if the license plate was taken off of it. Now, if somebody did drive it into a river somewhere or put it in a storage area or something like that, then of course that makes it a lot more difficult. But that makes it very complex that she and her car were missing. I think we would have a clear idea of this if just she were missing. But we also have to consider, could this disappearance be connected to that prior shooting? Was this some sort of revenge? Did somebody know that she was going to be by herself? Something to consider. That, once again, on the surface, just looking at the news from February of 2023, we would not consider until we get to know that person more. And that is why we spend so much time on Unfound, on getting to know the person before we ever get to the circumstances. But what we don't know is, was Maya still doing this stuff? Was she still engaging in this type of behavior? If so, then we must consider the idea that this behavior led to her disappearance. Do we know if she was on parole? Let's say if she was on parole or probation and she did, she had some violation, could she have taken off because she knew she was going to go back to jail? Also something that we have to consider, given the totality of knowing Maya as we do. Did she have any warrants out for arrest? Not that I saw. So, but these are things we don't know that I think would help us better understand. I mean, if we were to find out that Maya had violated her probation and she was due to go back to jail, they were coming after her and she was going to be going back to jail on February 28th, then certainly the idea that she just drove off trying to get away from all of it certainly goes just about right up to the top of the most, probable theory. But we just don't know. And like I said, nobody's talking. No friends or family are talking that I could find. My analysis, just looking at it, is that A lot of things are on the table. Was this some sort of revenge? Did she run off with her car because she thought she was going back to jail? Did she get carjacked? Or is so many of the disappearances we cover on Unfound, is this simply just a relationship gone bad? That she was at her house with her boyfriend and he's the one who said she left, when really that's not what happened. Of course, we've covered many, many, many disappearances like that on Unfound. We have to also be open, given seemingly Maya's choices from 6 years ago, that she also lied about her going to this downtown festival and took off on her own. A lot of things still on the table, I think, for Maya Blanton. I don't want to really narrow it down. I think 3 or 4 possibilities are still very viable, given who she was, given the circumstances, given it seems some of the choices that she made in her life. So that is Unfound Now's coverage of the disappearance of Maya Blanton, who disappeared from Baton Rouge on February 25th of 2023. She was 26 years old. She was at her home, and allegedly she was going by herself to a festival downtown in downtown Baton Rouge, a very short drive. She never ended up there, and neither she nor her car have ever been seen again. And I did this, recorded this on March 27th, 2023. Thank you for watching. Once again, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, consider Patreon if you could, and I will talk to you again next month.